Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in life when we find ourselves standing at the edge of something broken. A love that was supposed to be a safe haven turned into a storm we never saw coming. A relationship that once felt like home became a battlefield where we fought for scraps of kindness, for moments of peace, for the hope that maybe tomorrow would be different. There comes a time in life when you must choose yourself, not as an afterthought, not as a compromise, but as the main character in your own story. Walking away from a toxic relationship isn't just about leaving someone behind. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself that you lost in the process. It's about looking in the mirror and recognizing the person staring back at you, not through the eyes of someone who tried to diminish your worth, but through your own, with clarity, strength, and self-respect. For too long you stayed, convincing yourself that love meant sacrifice, that patience would fix the cracks, that if you just held on a little longer, the version of them you once knew would return. But love should never feel like a battlefield where you're the only one fighting. Love isn't supposed to leave you doubting your own worth or questioning your every move. Love, real love, doesn't silence you, it amplifies you. When you walk away, you're not just leaving behind pain, you're stepping into power. You're rewriting the narrative that told you to shrink yourself, to tolerate disrespect, to mistake chaos for passion. You're reclaiming your voice, your dreams, your joy, and yes, it will be hard. You will have moments where you wonder if you made the right choice. But in those moments, remember this: you didn't leave because you stopped loving them. You left because you started loving yourself. The world will try to tell you that choosing yourself is selfish, that staying would have been easier, but the truth is, there is nothing more courageous than breaking free from something that was breaking you. It takes strength to walk away from familiar pain in search of an uncertain but hopeful future. It takes resilience to heal wounds that no one else can see. And it takes self-respect to finally say, I deserve more. One day you will look back and realize that the love you kept giving away was the love you needed to give yourself all along. And in that moment you will understand, leaving wasn't the end, it was the beginning. There is a certain kind of heartbreak that doesn't just come from losing someone, it comes from losing yourself in the process. Walking away from a toxic relationship is only the first step. The real challenge begins when you have to unlearn the lies you once believed, the ones whispered to you so often that they became your own inner voice. Healing isn't just about moving on. It's about untangling yourself from the false narratives that kept you trapped. You were told you were too much, too emotional, too needy, too sensitive, but that was never the truth. Your emotions were never the problem. Their inability to honor them was. You were made to believe that love should be earned, that you had to prove your worth, that you had to settle for crumbs and call it a feast. But love that requires you to shrink, to suffer, to prove yourself over and over, that isn't love, it's control. Now is the time to rewrite the story, to realize that the things they criticized about you, your depth, your kindness, your fire, were never flaws. They were simply things they couldn't handle. The way they treated you was never a reflection of your worth, only a revelation of their own limitations. You are not unlovable. You are not difficult. You are not the problem. The problem was convincing yourself that you had to stay where you were not valued. Healing means taking back the pen and becoming the author of your own narrative. It means silencing the voice that tells you that you will never find love again, that you are broken beyond repair, that maybe they were right about you. They weren't. You are not broken. You are becoming. Every wound, every scar, every tear has been a lesson, not a definition. And the most powerful thing you can do now is refuse to let the past dictate your future. One day you will wake up and realize that you no longer crave their validation, that the voice in your head no longer sounds like them, that you no longer see yourself through their eyes. And in that moment you will know you have finally unlearned the lies. You have finally come home to yourself. Healing is not a straight path. It's not a moment of clarity that suddenly makes everything okay. It's a journey, a messy, unpredictable, deeply personal journey. Some days you will feel free, like you can finally breathe again, as if the weight of their words and actions has lifted off your chest. And then, without warning, a song, a scent, or a familiar place will pull you back into the past, and you'll wonder if you've truly moved on at all. This is where most people get stuck. They mistake the bad days for failure, as if healing is supposed to be a perfect upward climb. But growth isn't linear, and pain doesn't just vanish overnight. There will be moments of doubt, moments where the loneliness feels unbearable, moments where the silence in your life is louder than the chaos you left behind. And in those moments, you will be tempted to question everything, to wonder if you made the right choice, if maybe it wasn't that bad, if perhaps you should have stayed. But nostalgia has a way of making us remember only the good, and healing requires the courage to see the whole picture. This is where your strength is tested. Not in the act of leaving, but in the decision to keep going, to keep choosing yourself even on the days when it feels easier to go back to what was familiar, to sit with the pain, not run from it, to remind yourself that just because healing takes time doesn't mean it's not happening. Every tear shed, every boundary set, every time you choose not to answer that late night message, it's all proof that you are becoming stronger than you ever thought possible. One day you will wake up and realize that the pain doesn't define you anymore, that you are no longer living in survival mode, that the love you kept searching for in someone else is now something you give to yourself, freely, unapologetically, and without fear. And when that day comes, you will know that healing wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about learning that your future is worth so much more. Grief is a strange thing. It doesn't just come when we lose someone we love. It also comes when we walk away from something that was hurting us. No one tells you that leaving a toxic relationship doesn't mean you stop feeling. That even after everything, you will still find yourself missing the good moments, replaying the laughter, holding on to the memories that once made your heart feel full. Because the truth is, even unhealthy love was still love in some form, and losing it still leaves a void. This is where the real healing begins, not in denying your pain, but in allowing yourself to grieve, to mourn not just the relationship, but the dreams you had for it. To acknowledge the version of you who stayed, who tried, who fought for something that was never meant to last. Grief doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. It proves that you loved deeply, that you gave with an open heart, that you believed in something bigger than yourself, and that is nothing to be ashamed of. But grief also asks something of you. It asks you to let go, to stop waiting for closure from someone who could never give it to you, to stop hoping they will suddenly realize your worth when they should have seen it all along, to release the what ifs and the maybe one days and step fully into the life that is waiting for you. Because the longer you hold on to what was, the longer you delay what could be. One day you will wake up and the ache will be softer, the memories will no longer sting but simply exist as part of your story. You will realize that grieving the loss of something toxic was not a sign that you wanted it back, but a sign that you were brave enough to walk away. And in that moment you will understand you didn't lose anything. You set yourself free. Forgiveness is one of the hardest things to understand after leaving a toxic relationship. The world tells you to let go, to move on, to forgive as if it's some kind of final step in the healing process. But how do you forgive someone who never apologized? How do you release pain that was never acknowledged? How do you make peace with the damage left behind when they walked away unscarred, while you were the one left to rebuild? The truth is, forgiveness is not for them. It never was. It is not about excusing what they did, erasing the past, or pretending it never hurt. It is not about making room for them in your life again or giving them another chance. Forgiveness is for you. It is about refusing to let their actions define your future. It is about setting down the weight of the anger, the resentment, the unanswered questions, and choosing to carry only what serves you. Because the longer you hold on to the pain, the longer they still have power over you, and they do not deserve that power. Forgiveness doesn't mean you have to understand why they did what they did. Some people hurt others not because they are broken, but because they choose to. Some people will never change, never take accountability, never see the destruction they caused. And that is not your burden to bear. Your healing does not depend on their remorse. It depends on your decision to be free. One day you will wake up and realize that their name no longer brings anger to your heart, that their actions no longer control your emotions, that you no longer need them to admit what they did because you have already validated your own pain. And in that moment, you will understand forgiveness was never about letting them go. It was about letting yourself go. Love was never meant to be something that drains you, that makes you question your worth, that leaves you feeling more alone in someone's presence than in their absence. Yet when you walk away from a toxic relationship, love itself can feel like a foreign concept, something you once believed in but no longer trust. It is easy to isolate yourself, to build walls so high that no one can get in, to convince yourself that maybe it's safer to be alone. But healing does not happen in loneliness. It happens in the presence of real love. Not the kind of love that made you beg, not the kind that kept you second guessing, not the kind that manipulated you into believing that pain was just part of the deal, but the kind of love that asks for nothing but your happiness. The kind that shows up without conditions, without games, without making you question whether you are enough. It's in the friends who remind you of your light when you have forgotten it. It's in the family members who hold space for your healing without rushing you. It's in the quiet moments with yourself, where you finally start to feel at home in your own skin again. Surround yourself with those who remind you of who you were before you forgot your worth, with those who see you, truly see you, without trying to mold you into something smaller. Love is not just romance. It's in the laughter that fills a room, in the comfort of deep conversations, in the people who stand by you without needing a reason. You deserve that. You always did. One day you will wake up and realize that love was never meant to hurt, to break, to leave you empty, that the love you lost was not love at all. It was a lesson, and the love that is meant for you, the kind that feels like home, has been waiting for you to find your way back to it all along. For so long, you doubted yourself. You silenced your intuition, ignored the red flags, convinced yourself that the problem was you, that if you just tried harder, loved deeper, stayed longer, things would change. You learned to second-guess your own feelings, to seek validation from someone who never saw your worth, to apologize for things that were never your fault. And now, even after walking away, you find yourself questioning, how do I trust myself again? Rebuilding trust with yourself is the most important part of healing. It means learning to listen to that quiet voice inside you, the one that was always there, even when you ignored it. It means understanding that your ability to love was never the mistake. The mistake was believing that love should cost you your peace. It means recognizing that your past choices do not define your future. They were lessons, not life sentences. You must forgive yourself for the times you stayed when you should have left, for the times you accepted less than you deserved, for the moments when fear kept you from speaking up. You were surviving, you were doing the best you could with what you knew at the time, but now you know better. And when you know better, you do better. Start small. Listen to yourself in the little things. What makes you feel safe? What drains your energy? What brings you joy? Honor those feelings. Set boundaries not as walls to keep love out, but as doors that only open for those who treat you with the respect you deserve. Trust is not rebuilt overnight, but with every decision that aligns with your truth, you take one step closer to yourself. One day you will wake up and realize that you no longer need permission to trust your own instincts, that the voice inside you is no longer filled with doubt, but with certainty. And in that moment, you will understand self-trust was never lost. It was waiting for you to come back home to it. After being in a toxic relationship, it's easy to believe that the safest way to protect yourself is to shut the world out, to build walls so high that no one can ever hurt you again, to convince yourself that vulnerability is a weakness, that trusting people is a risk not worth taking, but isolation is not healing. Avoiding love is not the same as protecting your heart. True healing doesn't come from closing yourself off. It comes from learning the difference between walls and boundaries. Walls keep everyone out, even the ones who want to love you the right way. They keep you locked in your past, replaying old wounds, making you believe that love itself is the enemy. But boundaries are different. Boundaries are a declaration of self-respect. They are the invisible lines that remind you and everyone around you what you will and will not accept. Boundaries are not about fear, they are about freedom. The freedom to say no without guilt, to walk away without apology, to choose yourself without hesitation. Setting boundaries does not mean you are unkind or unloving, it means you have learned. It means you refuse to settle for anything less than what nurtures your soul. It means you will no longer sacrifice your peace just to keep someone else comfortable. The people who truly love you will respect your boundaries, not test them. The right ones will understand that your strength is not a challenge, but a testament to your growth. One day you will wake up and realize that protecting your heart doesn't mean shutting people out. It means letting the right ones in. It means understanding that love, the kind you deserve, doesn't ask you to break yourself in half just to be enough. And in that moment, you will know you are not hard to love. You just needed to love yourself first. For so long, you searched for love in someone else. You gave and gave, hoping that if you just loved them enough, they would finally see your worth. You waited for the moment they would change, for the day they would love you the way you deserved. But love should never be something you have to earn. It should never make you feel like you are too much or not enough. And now, after walking away, after surviving the storm, you stand at the edge of a new beginning. The question is, where do you find the love you were looking for? The answer has been with you all along. It was never in them. It was always in you. You see, real love isn't something you chase, it's something you become. It's in the way you speak to yourself when no one is listening. It's in the way you refuse to settle, the way you protect your peace, the way you hold yourself with the kind of tenderness you once gave away so freely. Healing isn't about waiting for someone new to come along and fix what was broken. It's about realizing that you were never broken to begin with. You were just taught to believe you were. You are not defined by the love that failed you. You are defined by the love you choose to give yourself now. And this love, it looks like showing up for yourself, even on the days when it feels impossible. It looks like chasing your dreams without fear, like surrounding yourself with people who lift you higher, like walking into every room knowing that you belong there. It looks like knowing that you are already whole, that love is not something you need to find, it is something you already are. One day you will wake up and realize that you no longer crave validation from the person who couldn't see you, that you are no longer waiting for closure, for an apology, for a moment that will never come. You will see yourself clearly, fully, in all your power, and in that moment you will understand you were never missing anything. You were the love you were looking for all along. There will come a day when you no longer feel the weight of what happened to you. A day when their words no longer echo in your mind, when the past no longer grips your heart with sadness or regret. That day will not come all at once. Healing is not a single moment of transformation. It is a quiet unfolding, a gradual return to yourself, a process of rediscovering who you are without the pain that once defined you. For too long you lived in survival mode. You learned to walk on eggshells, to anticipate chaos before it arrived, to silence your own needs to keep the peace. You forgot what it felt like to breathe freely, to exist without fear, to be loved without conditions. But leaving was not just an escape, it was an act of courage. It was you declaring to the universe that you deserve better, even if at the time you weren't sure what better looked like. Now, as you stand on the other side of that decision, know this. You did not leave to stay broken. You did not survive just to exist in the shadow of what was. You left so you could become. So you could step into a life where love does not come with conditions, where your worth is not up for negotiation, where peace is not something you have to fight for, it simply is. You will love again, but more importantly, you will love yourself in ways you never have before. You will stop apologizing for being too much, for feeling deeply, for asking for what you deserve. You will stop doubting your instincts, stop justifying mistreatment, stop carrying the guilt that was never yours to bear. You will learn that your strength was never in enduring pain. It was in choosing to walk away from it. One day you will wake up and the story you once thought defined you will feel like a distant memory. You will look in the mirror and see not the version of you who was hurt, but the version who rose from it. And in that moment, you will know you are free, you have healed, and the life that is waiting for you is more beautiful than you ever imagined.